So the other thing that we talked about in another meeting is local law 97. Explain a little what that law is.
Yeah, so Local Law 97 was approved a little bit before, I think it was right before COVID. We are concerned about carbon offset into the environment. And Local Law 97, it's a New York City local law. It was intended to help the city reduce the overall carbon offset into the atmosphere. In stages, sets a limit on how much carbon a building can offset into the environment. And the first deadline was 2024. The next deadline will be 2030. And then they're going up till 2050. And again, the idea is to ideally get to net zero, which would be a zero offset. And the important thing to understand regarding the Local Law 97 is that it's a requirement on the landlord and not on the tenant. However, depending on how your lease is written, the landlord could make the tenant responsible for a good portion of the costs of any penalties if the building does not comply. And if the landlord elects to modify his systems to make them more efficient to reduce carbon offset, again, depending on how the lease is written, it could be passed along to a tenant. So when you're going out with your broker and you're going out with Richard, let's say, and
Any
you know,
broker.
you're looking, or any broker for that matter, but go with a good one. You want to ask what's the status of the building as it relates to Local Law 97. And that information now is made available on the building department's website. But again, it would be easier if you went to an engineer and you asked the engineer, because we could look at, you know, what information is available, where the offset is coming from. There are things that a tenant can control, and there are things that a tenant can't control. Tenant can control the power being used by his lighting. The tenant can control the usage of, sometimes the usage of his air conditioning, depending if it's centralized or if they have package units on their floor. But there are other things that are totally in the landlord's control, and you want to make sure that you're not being penalized for things that the landlord is controlling.
If you are negotiating that clause, you want your carbon emission just to be of your space, not of the total building.
There's a flaw in the Local Law 97 rules in general, because it doesn't really account for the hours of usage. It just looks at the total offset. So a building, One Bryant Park is a really good example, and it's like a LEED platinum building, which is most efficient, but because a lot of the systems are running 24/7, they would be hit with a huge penalty, even though they're LEED platinum, and that still hasn't been corrected by the building department, by the code.